Hello students, this lecture is the third lecture of the quantum mechanics lecture series. The links to watch previous lectures is also given in this video description. So in this lecture, we are going to discuss the next development of quantum mechanics, that is the dual nature of matter. But before start, let me brief you all about the major conclusions of the last lecture. Students, in the last lecture, we had learned that the energy can only be transferred in multiples of a fixed amount, and that fixed amount is h nu, which is called as photon. This theory was called as old quantum theory or Planck's quantum theory and was able to explain the discrepancies found in classical concepts of radiation, like the stability of atoms and molecules, the energy spectra of blackbody radiations. It also successfully explained the photoelectric effect and the Compton scattering effect. Yes, the photoelectric effect and the Compton scattering effect, the light photons were behaving as particles. But with this theory, the difficulty still persists with the optical phenomena like interference, diffraction. These phenomena were not explained if we assume that light is behaving as a particle. Now, to resolve this discrepancy, Victor de Broglie suggested that the matter has a dual nature, and later he was awarded Nobel Prize for this in 1929. He proposed that the matter possesses wave nature as well as particle nature. He said that the motion of the electrons in atom is guided by a wavy behavior which is quite similar to electromagnetic waves, and this behavior serves to guide the motion of photons. According to him, electrons as well as protons too, which normally behave like particles, they under certain conditions do behave like a train of waves. The wavelength of those waves will depend upon the momentum, which in turn depends upon the mass and velocity of the particles. This idea of de Broglie was immediately accepted, and later it was extended by many scientists. This idea led to the foundation of a new branch of physics, which is called wave mechanics or new quantum mechanics. So in this video lecture, we will study the experimental evidence of this idea of duality of matter and also the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Now let us see the mathematical form of de Broglie hypothesis. Students, in the last lecture, we have seen that according to Planck's quantum theory, energy of a photon can be written as E is equal to h nu. Also, the Einstein's mass energy relation is given by E is equal to mc square. Now, using this relation, you can write mass of photon as E over c square, or from the Planck's quantum theory, you can replace E as h nu. So mass becomes h nu over c square. Further, knowing the mass, you can also write momentum of photon, which is just the product of mass and velocity. So momentum P becomes m into c, which further becomes h nu over c square as mass multiplied by c and becomes h nu over c. Now h nu over c can be written as h over lambda. Obviously, nu over c has been replaced by 1 over lambda using this relation. Now this relations can be easily deduced from the old quantum theory using our old learned relations. Now what de Broglie had added to this? He added that all moving particles are associated with a wave. He told this hypothesis for all moving particles. So, wavelength of this wave that is associated with all moving particles will be lambda is equal to h over p, which can be directly written from here. But the difference is now the particle velocity is not c, that is velocity of light, that is velocity of microscopic particles of atomic dimensions like electron. Here de Broglie had said that all moving particles are associated with a wave, means microscopic as well as macroscopic. So particle velocity can now be v also. So now lambda becomes h over m into v. Now this is the de Broglie wave equation for matter waves. Now we will write de Broglie wavelength lambda in terms of energy and temperature. Now as you have seen that lambda is equal to h over t. T is momentum. Now you also know that kinetic energy of any particle can be written as half mv square. Just to write energy in terms of momentum, we write multiply and divide by m, which just becomes p square over 2m. This is kinetic energy. Now you can write p square is equal to under root 2m into e using these relations. Now from point 1 again, just replace the value of p there and lambda becomes h over under root 2 into m into e. Okay, this is the wavelength in terms of energy. Now again come to kinetic theory of gases. Now obviously energy is equal to half mv square, and kinetic theory of gases suggests that in terms of temperature the kinetic energy can be written as 3 by 2 kT, as you have studied in BSc first year also. K you know as Boltzmann's constant, T is temperature here. Now if you use point 3, that is lambda, which is equal to h over under root 2me. Just replace the value of e here as 3 by 2 kt and you will get the de Broglie wavelength in terms of temperature, h over root 3 mkt. Now these are the two equations in terms of energy and in terms of temperature. Now I also drop here an exercise for you people. Just solve this numerical and give your answers in the comment box. This is just a small exercise for you. Next, you must be thinking that as de Broglie said, if everything is associated with wave nature, then why can't we see our wave? For this, let me show you a demonstration taking a casual example. This is the de Broglie wave equation. So let me first consider the example of a macroscopic object like a man with mass 55 kg and velocity 0.5 meter per second. Then you can calculate de Broglie wavelength easily. H over mv, you know the value of h, just put the values for m and v and you get wavelength as 2.4 into 10 raised to power minus 35 meter. Now take a case for a microscopic object like an electron. Here the mass is 90 to 10 raised to power minus 31 kilograms. Velocity is 10 raised to power 6 meter per second in general. Then again calculate the de Broglie wavelength in case of electron. Substitute the values for h, m and v and you get lambda as 0.73 into 10 raised to power minus 9 meter. Now just compare these two values and the wavelength in case of a macroscopic object is, you see, very small to be observed. It is too small to be observed by your naked eye. So clearly, it is indeed the wave nature is associated with all the matter waves, but the wave properties associated with the particles are observed only for microscopic particles, that are very small particles, and not with the macroscopic particles. Now, next we study the evidence of matter waves. Students, a proposed theory is never accepted unless it has support from experimental results. So, in support of de Broglie's theory, Davison-Germer experiment and G.P. Thomson experiment have been performed. Now, before learning about both these experiments, let us first learn the de Broglie relation in terms of potential difference, because this relation will be used while studying the results of the experiments. So a free electron, if starts from rest and then accelerated through a potential difference, acquire a kinetic energy definitely, and this kinetic energy can be written as E times V. So half mv square, the kinetic energy becomes equal to E into V. Using this, I can write velocity as under root 2 into potential V into electronic charge E divided by m mass of electron. Now de Broglie wave formula says lambda is equal to h over mv. Replace V here and you get h over under root 2 VEM. You know the values of Planck's constant, electronic charge and mass of an electron. So substituting the values, lambda becomes 12.27 divided by under root V, that is potential. Units are angstrom. So this is the relation between wavelength and the potential difference. Now let us move to see the Davison-Germer experiment. This is the Davison-Germer experimental setup. Davison and Germer experimentally demonstrated the diffraction of electrons. Here, the electrons are produced by heating a tungsten filament F, and then the electrons are accelerated through a known potential difference V by maintaining a steady potential difference between the filament F and the plate P. The electrons are collimated by passing through narrow holes and finally emerge through a fine hole H in the form of a very narrow collimated beam. This whole arrangement is known as the electron gun. Finally, the fine beam of electrons emerged from the electron gun falls normally on the surface of a single nickel crystal N. This is prepared by baking the block of nickel in a high temperature oven when very small individual crystals, of which the block is normally composed of, form a large single crystal, all the atoms of which are arranged in a regular lattice. The electrons are scattered by the crystal in all directions. See students, what is happening. F is filament, टंगस्टन फिलामेंट, जहां से इलेक्ट्रॉन्स निकलते हैं. इलेक्ट्रॉन्स को एक पोटेंशियल डिफरेंस, मतलब आगे नॉड लगा के उसको पॉजिटिव, हाई पॉजिटिव चार्ज देकर इलेक्ट्रॉन्स को एक्सेलरेट कराया जाता है ताकि इलेक्ट्रॉन्स फिलामेंट एफ से मूव करें आगे. आगे होल H के पास से इलेक्ट्रॉन बीम फाइन होकर निकलती है, जो कि आगे निकल क्रिस्टल N पर हिट करती है। वहां से इलेक्ट्रॉन्स आर स्कैटर्ड बाय द क्रिस्टल इन ऑल डायरेक्शंस। यहाँ से सभी इलेक्ट्रॉन्स सभी डायरेक्शन में स्कैटर हो जाते हैं। एंड द इंटेंसिटी ऑफ द स्कैटर्ड बीम इन एनी डायरेक्शन is measured by allowing the beam to enter the ionization chamber I। यहाँ से स्कैटर्ड बीम को मेजर किया जाता है आयनाइजेशन चैम्बर I लगाकर, जो कि किसी फिक्स एंगल पर प्लेस किया गया है और आगे फर्दर एक सेंसिटिव गैल्वेनोमीटर से अटैच्ड है ताकि कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग डिफ्लेक्शन जो है नोट की जा सके। This ionization chamber can be rotated with the crystal as the center। ये जो आयनाइजेशन चैम्बर है इसको हम क्रिस्टल के चारों तरफ घुमा सकते हैं ताकि इंटेंसिटी हर एक स्कैटरिंग एंगल फाई के अकॉर्डिंग हम रिकॉर्ड कर सकें। फाइनली we get different intensity graph for different scattering angles and a plot is drawn with phi along x-axis and intensity along y-axis. Now, before observing the results, Bragg diffraction equation is applied to nickel crystal planes 2d sin theta equal to n lambda. For first plane n equal to 1, we can calculate lambda, which comes out to be 1.65 angstrom. Now let us see experimental results. What we observe from experiment that when electron beam is accelerated by a potential of 54 volt and then directed on the nickel target, then we get a sharp maximum, we get a peak in the electron intensity comes out to be at angle of 50 degree with the original beam direction. This is the plot shown over here for potential difference of 54 volts. The result has been shown here. And if we apply de Broglie relation here, de Broglie relation in terms of potential difference that we have seen in the last slide, it was lambda equal to 12.27 over under root V. V is 54 here. If we calculate it, it comes out to be 1.66 angstrom. And compare these two values, these are quite equal. Hence, the Davisson Germer experiment is in excellent agreement with the calculated value of 1.66 angstrom from de Broglie hypothesis. A similar experiment is performed by G.P. Thomson by his famous electron diffraction experiment. Here, the diffraction pattern obtained by passing a beam of electrons of velocity v through a thin gold foil was exactly similar to that obtained from a similar experiment of X-rays. Here, what they did, the electrons here are produced by passing an electric current on cathode C and accelerated by giving a high positive potential of the order of around 50,000 volts to the anode A shown in the figure. The whole apparatus is kept highly evacuated। कैथोड सी से इलेक्ट्रॉन्स को प्रोड्यूस किया जाता है और एनोड ए को हाई पॉजिटिव पोटेंशियल देकर इलेक्ट्रॉन्स को वहां से एक्सेलरेट करवाया जाता है। द इलेक्ट्रॉन बीम देन passes थ्रू अ फाइन होल and falls on the gold foil G, which is around of thickness 10 raised to power minus 6 centimeters। The electrons suffer diffraction there and which are then recorded on a photographic plate P placed further. This hitting electrons give rise to diffraction rings to rule out the possibility that the cathode ray beam produced X-ray on striking the film, and these X-ray produced the diffraction pattern. This experiment was repeated by introducing a magnetic induction field also between the film and photographic plate. It was found again that the diffraction pattern was exactly similar. On removing the film, that magnetic film, only central spot is obtained on the photographic plate without any diffraction pattern. This is the diffraction patterns, diffraction rings we obtained as a result of this experiment. And here again, if we calculate lambda from the Bragg's law and from the de Broglie formulas, both comes out to be equal and again confirms the wave nature of the electrons. Now students, let us learn the phase velocity and the group velocity. Wave motion associated with any light or any particle is a form of disturbance which travels through medium due to the repeated periodic motion of the particles of the medium about their mean positions. The motion is further handed over from one particle to the next. See students, you can compare this situation of wavy behavior with the situation that when you throw a stone into water of a pond, then you observe circular waves emerging from the point of drop. Those waves continuously move outside and create disturbance in the water. Obviously, you observe that the water particles do not move from one point to another. The stone transfers energy into a water particle. That water particle starts oscillating. That particle then hands over its energy, transfers its energy to next particle. Then next waveform creates. This second particle then transfers its energy to the third, and so on. The particles themselves do not move from one point to another. And these particles behave as oscillator which make up the medium and execute only harmonic motion about their mean position. They do not themselves travel through the medium. This is the point to note. Every wave begins its vibration a little later than its predecessor. You see there that initially only one circular ring of wave appears. After transferring of energy from first particle to the next, the second waveform appears. And as a result of the next progressive waves you see in the water. And obviously, there will be a phase relationship of those water particles. Why? Because every second particle have different velocity or different kind of motion from the first one, and this is why there is a phase relationship between the particles and the velocity with which the planes of equal phase travels through the medium, that is known as the phase velocity. If I write Vp is the phase velocity, then obviously any velocity can be written as product of frequency into wavelength. So here I just make use of relations angular frequency as 2 pi nu and k wave vector. I can write it as 2 pi over lambda. So Vp becomes Finally, omega over k. Omega is angular frequency and k is the wave vector. Now let us know about the group velocity. Now what is a group? A group consists of a number of waves of different frequencies that are superimposed upon each other. For example, you consider white light. It has a wide range of wavelengths ranging from 3000 angstrom to 7000 angstrom or 300 nanometers to 700 nanometers. Now the velocity with which this slowly varying envelope due to a group of waves travels in the medium, this is known as the group velocity. Now why we study group velocity? Because this is the velocity with which the energy in the wave group can be transmitted. If we consider a group of waves that has only two components and that two components too have equal amplitude and equal angular frequency, then phase velocity is definitely omega over k, and the group velocity we can write as delta omega over delta k, where delta omega is the difference of angular frequencies and delta k is difference of their wave vectors. Now let us learn the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, from where this idea of uncertainty comes. See students, while learning the group velocity, it is quite clear that the association of a group of waves with a moving particles means that the position of particle at any instant of time cannot be specified with certainty. अगर एक पार्टिकल के साथ एक ग्रुप ऑफ वेव्स एसोसिएटेड हैं, देन हम सर्टेनिटी के साथ ये नहीं कह सकते कि पार्टिकल की पोजीशन जो है वो ये है, पार्टिकल के कोऑर्डिनेट्स जो हैं हम एक्यूरेसी के साथ नहीं बता सकते. All that we can say is that particle is somewhere within the group of waves. That is, it must be within that small region of space. या ग्रुप्स के अंदर जो ग्रुप है उसके अंदर कहीं है, कहाँ है ये हमें नहीं पता. And obviously certain inaccuracy is always there while defining the position of moving particle. The particle may be electron or proton or whatever, and with the same reasoning it can also be said that a certain amount of inaccuracy will be definitely with the velocity and momentum of the particle. And in this connection, Heisenberg gave the uncertainty principle, which states that if you attempt to simultaneously determine the position and momentum at a point of time, you cannot do so. There will there will always be uncertainties in the values of x and p, and the product of those uncertainties is always equal to or greater than the Planck's constant h. Mean the product of uncertainties will always be greater than the h value. This can also be said in other terms as if you try to know the value of position with great accuracy, then the momentum value becomes less accurate, and the situation is vice versa too. But classically it was not so. Classically we were able to calculate the position and momentum of any particle simultaneously and were also able to predict the future positions and momentum values for the particles like moving person or vehicle or any macroscopic objects. But according to uncertainty principle, it is never possible to determine the values of x and p at the same time. Now, a similar relation also exists with the values of energy and time. The products of uncertainties in the measurements of energy and time is also equal to or greater than the Planck's constant. The uncertainty principles equally applies to the energy and time values. Now let us deduce the uncertainty principle from the de Broglie formula. And for this deduction, let us consider a group of waves that contains only two components. Both components have equal amplitude and the frequencies omega 1 and omega 2 both differs by a small amount, and the waves can be written like psi 1 and psi 2 here. Obviously omega 1 and k1 is the first phase velocity, and omega 2 divided by k2 is the phase velocity of second wave. Now the resultant amplitude you can write as sum of psi 1 and psi 2, where delta omega or delta k becomes the group velocity. Now, as the group velocity of de Broglie wave group associated with a moving particle is equal to the particle velocity, the loop formed is equivalent to the position of the particle. And the position of the particle within the wave cannot be determined with certainty that we have discussed. It certainly lies somewhere between the consecutive nodes created between the waves. Or we can say, in other words, that the fundamental error in the measurement of position. We can't locate the particle, and we are trying to know the error in the measurement of position of the particle, that will definitely be equal to the distance between the two consecutive nodes. The condition for the formation of any node is equal to cosine of the value equal to 0, and this equation gives value of the argument of cosine as pi by 2, 3 pi by 2, or any odd multiples of pi by 2, which can be written as 2n plus 1 times pi by 2. If I assume that the nodes appear at 2 points x1 and x2, then obviously these 2 points will satisfy the above condition for the formation of node. And I can write this condition for these 2 points, and on subtraction these two equation gives delta k by 2 into x1 minus x2 equal to pi. I carry this relation onto my next slide, and the error in position of particle can be written as difference of these 2 points x1 minus x2 delta x, that can be written from the above marked equation as 2 pi by delta k. Now use definition of wave vector as 2 pi by lambda, and lambda can be written using de Broglie formula, that is 2 pi p over h, which further means that delta k is 2 pi delta p over h. And if I replace this delta k into the equation for delta x, I get delta x equal to h over delta p, which finally gives delta x dot delta p equal to h. That is, on using the de Broglie formula, I am getting nothing but the Heisenberg uncertainty principle as my final result. So students, I end this lecture at this point. You just practice all the mathematical terms at home, and you can see that all the mathematical task was quite simple and straight. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and in the next lecture we will learn about the development of Schrodinger equations. Thank you.